Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. We have two 80 proof Canadian whiskeys, no age statement, produced by Sazerac Canada and bottled in Kentucky by Sazerac. Now, this one is called Canadian Peak. Canadian blended whiskey. Doesn't say anything about natural flavors. And Sazerac's usually good about letting you know if it has natural flavoring. So I'm going to assume that it doesn't. There's the mountain peaks in the background. The bottle, now this was introduced in 1961, and the bottle is much different than when it first came out. The bottle design is totally different. Okay. If you look at photographs of this product from the 1960s, is completely different. They just had a traditional bottle with a picture of Canadian mountains on it, but it's just standard. Yeah. Sazerac, I guess, brought in this bottle design to give it a little more, a little nicer appearance, to stand it, set it apart from others. And price point, I bought this at Hocus Pocus Spirits in Prairieville, Louisiana, on United States Highway 61 northbound, and it was like $15.99. Okay. Now this product, you can get the whole handle for $15.99, not just a regular size bottle. This is Canadian Limited. If I can get it to focus, I'll be so happy. It's Canadian Limited was introduced in 1961. By Fleischmann Distilling. There we go. There we go. It's got a beaver chewing on a branch. It's got two lions wearing crowns holding up a shield with fleur-de-lis and two crowns on it. Charles III and Queen Camilla. Limited. Fleischmann Distilling. Well, Fleischmann Distilling introduced this in 1971. So 1961, I don't know who the parent company was in 61. I don't remember. I could find out. 1971, Fleischmann Distilling. But whatever the case, owned by Sazerac to date. Oh, forgot the glasses. Whew. Let's see if I can find out. Might be some company I never heard of. Because Sazerac's got a reputation for buying up other, smaller outfits. Let's see. Canadian. Owned by Sazerac Brands. First used in commerce. Oh no, that's the new trademark. Let's see. Canadian Peak. First used May of 1961. Trademark events. Oh, there's all stuff about attorneys. It says Majestic Distilling. Okay, that's owned by Sazerac. That's in Maryland. Their distillery and bottling plant was in Baltimore County, Maryland, Majestic Distilling. Okay, so they got bought out by Sazerac. So, okay, yeah, they're the ones that also make Canadian Peak, uh, Canadian Leaf. If you get Canadian Leaf, even today it says Majestic Distilling, formerly known as Monumental Distilling. And they had that Club 400 American Blended Whiskey, and people in Baltimore told me, yeah, it's really popular out there in Maryland area, Club 400. I just bought a small plastic bottle of it in Alabama once. It was cheap, but after I paid the Alabama taxes, it wasn't cheap. And I was like, well, I'll never buy liquor in Alabama again, that's for sure. And I never did. Thank you, Sandra, for this full-size bottle. This extra large bottle, I mean to say. It was nearly full. She said she had started drinking, but then she gave up drinking, so she just had it setting in her closet for years. She said, I'm never going to drink it. You want it? I said, sure. It was a really nice gift. Here's the real cork. It's a real piece of cork. It's a real wooden cap. Got a little white mold on it, look like. Okay, Canadian Peak. Oh yeah, there's a big write-up on there about, the Canadian Rockies and all of this historical geographic stuff. You get that on whiskey bottles, beer bottles. But I may as well read it because you can't look it up on the website, can you? Blended Canadian whiskey. Canadian Peak embodies the adventurous spirit of the Canadian Rockies with its bold, rich creaminess and spicy finish. This exemplary Canadian is expertly aged in select oak barrels, resulting in a perfectly balanced, mellow whiskey that's as worthy of exploration as Canada's great outdoors. It's got some little texture to it on the back, like real fine sandpaper or something, or old parchment paper. County Line Distillers, Louisville, Kentucky. That's just a shell company for Sazerac. A blend of premium Canadian whiskeys mellowed in white oak casks to achieve an exceptional flavor and smoothness. They're trying to compete with Crown Royal, but I'm sure that's not going to work. It might be as good as Crown Royal, but people aren't going to buy it. And, in fact, when I was at the liquor store, Hocus Pocus Spirits, the salesman there was like the clerk, maybe the owner, I don't know, it could be the owner. He was telling the guys, you could get this Canadian Peak. It's a good deal, because they were out of Crown Royal, believe it or not. These guys were going hunting. They were going to their hunting camp. So they're going to the hunting camp, and they wanted to get, I want Crown. And he's like, we don't have any. And he's like trying to push them toward the Canadian Peak. And they were saying, oh no. He said, give me some Crown. What are you telling me? Give me the Crown Black and the Reserve. They didn't have the regular Crowns, Crown Royal. So he said, give me the Black and the Reserve. So they got a big bottle of the Black, a handle, and they got a regular bottle of Reserve, Crown Royal Reserve, and they took off. They had all their hunting gear on, their camouflage and whatnot, and their trucks outside. So they were about to roll out. So, but I did give it a chance. In fact, I was off of work that day, and I figured, well, I saw that on their website, Canadian Peak, and I was like, let me go check that out. I don't know anything about it. I drove over 40 miles there, and then I bought the other stuff while I was there, meaning the Iron Wheel blended whiskey, and they had the heavy brandy. So I said, well, it's a nice little trip because I don't think I bought any craft beer that day. Their craft beer is always out of date. I guess they mostly specialize in liquor and wine. That's really their thing. So the craft beers are like, I try to avoid that place for that. But they're not the only place with that problem. This smells like just standard Canadian whiskey. Cereal grains, corn and whatnot. Same. All right, so appearance is practically the same. One might be a little darker, but it's just a minuscule amount darker, a shade darker, and not even a shade, half a shade darker, and the aroma is the same. So right now we even, which means the Canadian Limited is winning because it's half the price. Really less than half the price. I mean, more than half the price because you're getting a whole handle for $15.99. You get an extra 1,000 milliliters. Listen now, you're getting an extra 1,000 milliliters, an extra liter, but you're paying the same price. So you can get 750 milliliters for $15.99 of Canadian Peak. Nicer looking bottle, of course. Or you can get an extra 1,000 milliliters for the same price. So you're more than doubling your fund, so to speak. You say, yeah, but what if it's not any good? That would be an important consideration. We're going to find out right now. Yeah, the quality has to be part of the equation. You can't just say, well, I'm getting so much more ounce. I'm getting so many more ounces per dollar is what I mean to say. But then it has to be a good flavor. Let's go with the taste. Cheers. Sweet corn, a little bit of white oak, vanilla. Now we did a duo review of Crown Royal Reserve yesterday. And my friend David had mixed feelings about it. I'll post it one day. I didn't even post my solo review yet. But to be fair, he's like, I don't really like Canadian whiskey of any type, tell you the truth. He said, I never buy it. I don't have it at my house. He did like the one he did like was the Canadian Club 12-year aged. But besides that, he said, I don't like them. I said, that's funny because other people love, but it's a personal preference thing. I knew a guy, he passed away, unfortunately. That's the only kind of whiskey he drank. Canadian blended whiskey. That's what he liked. Okay, that's what you like. That's what you like. Okay, so we know somebody likes it because Crown Royal is the number one selling whiskey of any type in America. True story. Since 2021. Now, of course, that could change. Number one selling whiskey in the United States of any style, Crown Royal. So the best selling whiskey in America is not even made in the United States of America. It's made in Canada across the border. But these things change. You could be the number one beer in America. You could say, we're a light beer. We're the number one in America. But that could change. You might do something that causes your business to radically change. People make missteps. Look at Schlitz. There's a good example. Some people could have benefited from following that example, but they apparently didn't know the story or pay attention to it. Schlitz was the second best-selling beer in America up until 1976. Every store, every convenience store, every grocery store had Schlitz, every beer store. I remember those days. I was 8 years old. I didn't drink beer when I was 8. But I remember Schlitz being everywhere, everywhere, everywhere on every television show. Watch any football game, they always had a Schlitz commercial. Budweiser too, of course. And you saw people wearing the Schlitz T-shirts, the Schlitz caps, the Schlitz beach blanket, beach towels. I mean to say, and they did something. They made a bad decision, and it affected the company. And people were like, maybe they were thinking, oh, it's going to blow over. It didn't blow over. It blew them up. And now look, they got Schlitz over here at the local store in 12 packs. It went out of date. I saw it was out of date April 23rd. So it doesn't move. Now it seemed like the Schlitz Gold Bull's doing better, but it ought to. It's so cheap. They got the tall cans, the pint cans, $5.49 a 6 pack. $5.49 a 6 pack. Schlitz Gold Bull, and I see people buying that. I don't buy it. It's too strong for me. Good flavor, good flavor, but too strong. Even though that price is so very nice. But you never know. You think things are going to blow over. Maybe they don't blow over. But back to this. Sweet corn, vanilla, charred oak. Oh, okay. No way I'm paying extra for Canadian Pete. Is it a good flavor? Yeah, it's a good flavor. Is it remarkable? No, I wouldn't go that far. Would I buy it over Crown Royal? I would buy it over Crown Royal because I don't find Crown Royal to be remarkable. Good flavor. I like it. Don't like paying $23 for a regular size bottle. It's got the name recognition, of course. I don't have an issue with it. If you gave me a bottle, I'd drink it, especially since I wasn't paying for it. I didn't buy it. I didn't pay $23 for Crown Royal. I bought the handle anyway. The big glass bottle, which actually has a handle on the back. So dang heavy. But I paid $44.99. That should be, if you insist on buying Crown Royal, go ahead. But buy the handle because you're going to get it cheaper per ounce. So you can still find the handles for $44.99. This is years after I paid $44.99. But the regular bottle price has been creeping up. Went from $21.99. Now you're looking at $24.99, I think. Not a value, but people just love buying it in that bag. It's in that little felt bag. I'm being very careful with these two, and I'm telling you, I'm having a hard time telling them apart. Are you required to disclose that Canadian whiskey has flavoring added? No, you're not required to disclose that. It's allowed to have it up to what, 9.09% alcohol, something like that. I mean, what am I saying? Of the volume, 9.09. I think it's 9.09. I don't know why they use that strange number. Of the volume. Could be flavors such as, and usually it's things like rum or brandy or any kind of wine. So, I mean, imagine all the different wine varieties in the world. And it doesn't have to be expensive wine. It could be theoretically very cheap wine, as long as it's aged in what they call small wood. But on the other hand, it's not required to have flavoring added, and I'm sure many of them do not have flavoring added. And it seemed like they would list that on this bottle if it did, because it says Canadian Peak Blended Canadian Whiskey. End of story. So why are they adding flavoring to the Canadian Limited? I don't know. It says Canadian whiskey with natural flavors. Why are they adding the flavor? I asked the guy at Sazerac, Buffalo Trace. He was at the Buffalo Trace office. I said, why do they add flavoring to these products? He said, well, about 5 years ago, and that would have been 6 years ago at this time, He said about 5 years ago, they started adding flavoring to all their, what he called it, low end products. You say, you mean they're cheapos? Yeah. I said, well, why did they do that? He said, oh, to smooth it out, which means what? It was a little bit rough. That cheap stuff was a little rough, a little harsh. And so maybe by adding flavoring, he said, but it's a proprietary recipe. So they don't, he said, we don't disclose what the flavoring is. He said, I work for Sazerac and I don't know the flavoring. Buffalo Trace does not tell us. He said, but I get the impression that they're adding vanilla. This is what he's telling me on the phone. Just his own opinion. He said, I get the impression that they're adding vanilla. He doesn't know if they're adding vanilla, but that's the impression. And I also get that impression because it does have that flavor, which makes sense because a lot of whiskey just has that vanilla flavor off the bat anyway, from the wood, from the charred oak. So I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter in the end. So I've been having a horrible struggle within the context of the challenge, a horrible struggle telling Canadian Limited from the other Sazerac brands. In fact, I've only gotten it right once. Is that mainly because Sazerac has a house style? I think that is mainly because Sazerac has a house style. It's not that their Canadian whiskeys all taste identical. It comes down to the fact that they may as well be identical because the flavor is so close one to the other that there isn't much difference. Which would mean what? Why are you paying the extra? So, I mean, if you say, oh, no, I'm buying a Sazerac Canadian whiskey. I like their whiskeys. Okay, fine, buy it. But why, oh, why would you ever pay extra for it? In other words, just go and buy the cheapest one they've got. Doesn't matter which one. If it's Canadian Leaf, Canadian Lake, what do they have over there at Total Wine and More? Canadian Lake, I think it is. I can't remember. It's $15.99 for the handle. But then they had Potter's Canadian whiskey. Crazy name, huh? Potter's Crown Canadian whiskey for $14.99. That's not from Sazerac, so I don't know how it tastes, see, so I can't vouch for that one. But if you're going to buy the Sazerac brand, just get whatever one's cheaper. I bought that WD. That's really the name of it. WD Canadian whiskey. It was $14.99 for the handle. I hadn't opened it yet, but I know it's going to taste just like these. Or basically like these. You say, well, why'd you buy it? That's a good question. Why did I buy it? What was the point? Yeah, you start to wonder, what's the point if they're all going to be basically the same? That's an indictment, I guess, against my own purchasing protocol. On the other hand, it works both ways because look at the Crown Royal products. Are they really that different one from another? I haven't noticed that so far. I've noticed differences, but they all still taste like a Crown Royal thing. I found the Northern Harvest Rye to be the best of the bunch so far. That's a rye whiskey. That goes into my rye whiskey taste challenges. 95% rye whiskey. But yeah, I mean, they're subtle. Okay, let's give it one more taste and try to differentiate this, if possible, which my confidence level at this point is practically zero. Daylights here. Yeah, okay, so think this is Canadian Limited. And it is. Why did I guess that? Because it seemed to have a relative higher level of flavoring, so to speak. Um, yeah, that just reinforces what I'm saying. Just get the cheapest Sazerac product. Does Sazerac make good Canadian whiskey? Yes, I think so. Do they make great Canadian whiskey? Great Canadian whiskey. Oh, well, I haven't noticed that yet. If they do, I hadn't seen that. If they're making it great, couldn't say. I got to clean up. I think there's a little dust on this lens, but I'm going to wipe it with a cloth, not a paper, not paper. That scratches. Morning, Jay. I'm having a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale with steak and scrambled eggs, says Liam Gillespie. Well, when I eat breakfast, I drink coffee with it, but I can't really judge somebody who's having beer with breakfast, and I'm over here doing dawn busters at 5:30 a.m. So I can't really, couldn't say much about that, could I? So thanks for watching, everybody. Now, I believe that does bring us to the end of the Sazerac Canadian whiskeys, because I've already done the rest with Canadian Limited, but I'm going to bring in other brands. Canadian Gold, McAdams. I have the Crown Royal Black. I have Crown Royal. Not Blender's Mash, because I already did Blender's Mash versus Canadian Limited. Oh well, I have a number of Canadian whiskeys left that I have not challenged Canadian Limited with. So yeah, I'll bring those in, and then it'll be off to a more exciting product, Crown Royal Reserve. Or if you look at the cap, it still says Crown Royal Special Reserve. It's like they never changed. They forgot to change the cap, although the name was changed from Crown Royal Reserve. I'm sorry. In 1991, it was introduced as Crown Royal Special Reserve. But in the last few years, I heard they dropped the special, and in 2007, just making it Crown Royal Reserve. But the cap, my friend David said, it does say Special Reserve. I said, yeah. It's like they didn't bother changing the cap. You're an animal. You're an animal. You mean you are, YOU''RE. But I get what you're saying, Brewski. I don't know about it being an animal. Liam Gillespie says, do you like Miller Lite? Yeah, it's a good light beer, but I don't think it's as good as Milwaukee's Best Light. And Milwaukee's Best Light is cheaper. So guess what? I would buy Milwaukee's Best Light every time. So that's it. Go and watch the news. Y'all take care.